and everyone's getting excited here in Philadelphia. Is this Chip Kelly and all the moves that he made, is it the right decision? Well, it all gets started tonight going up against the Atlanta Falcons. And now joining us on the hotline is the sideline reporter for the Atlanta Falcons. Let me just say one thing about John Michaels. He is the biggest Mark D'Onofrio fan and Al Golden fan in the world. If you ever see him on the streets in Miami or in Atlanta, make sure you bring up those two former Temple guys to him. John Michaels, thanks for a few minutes. How are you?
Oh, doing great, Zach. It's a heck of an introduction there. Biggest Mark D'Onofrio and Al Golden fan. I just threw up in my mouth.
See, like Golden left Temple, D'Onofrio left Temple, and D'Onofrio tried to come back when that Temple job opened when Boston College's now Boston College coach Steve Addazio bolted from Temple to BC. And you said it off the air, hey, you may have to take Golden and D'Onofrio back. I don't want them. I trust Matt Rule and everything he's doing as the Temple Owls are 2-0 and 26 in the country.
Yeah, it's amazing what's going on up there. You know, you got to give credit where it's due. You beat Penn State. You're 2-0. Things look well for Temple. All the while, I'm standing watching Miami give up about 300 yards of offense to FAU on Friday night, and Al Golden coming out saying, you know, the environment there was something we weren't expecting. What, the 20,000 Miami fans that showed up at a visiting stadium you weren't expecting? It's amazing, the excuse machine, but I'm hoping only 10 more games of Mr. Golden and Mr. D'Onofrio.
And I love Al Golden for what he did here for Temple University. He did help save the football program, but it just comes to a point where sometimes in this business you have to fire your friends, and I don't get how D'Onofrio still has a job there.
Yeah, I have no idea. They're historically bad at Miami. Miami was known in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Dominant, fast defense that dictated the line of scrimmage, what they were going to do to you, not what you were going to do to them. Now they're passive. They play a system that doesn't fit. And they've been the worst, really, in my lifetime. And I'm 40 years old. This is the worst team I've ever seen defensively in the past 5 years. Like I said, it's not going to get any better. My days of complaining about those two are over. I just sit back. I try to support the kids and hope for the best come December.
I don't think there's a bigger Miami Hurricane fan in the country than you, just because also I named my dog Brady because I'm a Patriot fan, but you named your son Kane, and that shows how big of a fan you are, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've got a tattoo of the Orange Bowl on the inside of my arm. I've got the Ibis on another arm. I've got the U on my leg. And, yeah, my kid's named Kane. I can't wait, actually, taking him down. The Falcons have a Thursday night game in October against the Saints. Happens to be the same weekend Miami plays Virginia Tech, so I'm going to take my son to his first game. I figure he can see Dad mad for the first time in a long time.
How about that? Well, like one of his first words, was it fire D'Onofrio when he first spoke?
Oh, no, he learned the U first. I didn't teach him ABCs the traditional way. He started with U, and then he worked his way around the rest of the alphabet.
That's great. John Michaels joins us right now from 92.9. He is the sideline reporter for the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons play the Eagles tonight. Dan Quinn is the new coach down there in Atlanta. Comes from the Seahawks. We all know the defensive style they had, and the last 2 years they've been in the Super Bowl, and they were 1 yard short from winning back-to-back Super Bowls. It didn't work out with Smith. They didn't get over the hump. Why is Dan Quinn the right man to get the Falcons back in the right division, John?
I think for anything, Zach, it's basically a different voice in the room. Mike Smith, you got to give him credit where he's due. He was the most successful coach in franchise history. The problem is the message had sort of run its course. You didn't see any more growth out of the football team. They peaked a couple of years ago at 13-3 when they lost in the NFC Championship game to San Francisco. Unfortunately, from that point on, Thomas Dimitroff, some of his moves, Mike Smith's coaching style, it didn't mesh. And then the team was bit by the injury bug really badly the last 2 years. Dan Quinn's the right guy because you have a new approach, and you have somebody that's coming from a system in Seattle that obviously works. Pete Carroll bringing in his staff and, you know, going about business his way. Dan Quinn's implementing a lot of those same things here in Atlanta. Practice with music on, making guys more up-tempo, more energetic during practice, more accountability. And you've seen the roster churn happen over the last 15 to 20 days. A bunch of guys that, quite frankly, I thought were going to be on this football team were sent packing as bringing in Dan Quinn's type of guy. I think with him here, there's a new attitude, and I think this football team is primed to actually surprise a lot of people around the NFL.
Has he talked about Byron Maxwell at all this week? Because the Eagles made a big splash in the offseason, bringing over the defensive star, and Byron Maxwell should do some good things for the Eagles at corner this year.
Yeah, and that's going to be one of the matchups to watch tonight. Byron Maxwell going against Julio Jones. You want to talk about baptism by fire going against maybe the best wide receiver, maybe not the best, but one of the top 2 or 3 receivers in all of the NFL, and Julio Jones. Quinn hasn't really mentioned him. Dan's more worried about what he's got to accomplish on his team. Obviously, you're dealing with a Falcons team that's coming in, new offensive coordinator, and offensive line that's in flux. I mean, there were guys moved around and brought in right after that last preseason game. So they've spent that whole time trying to fix that situation and figure out how the Falcons will be offensively. But I look forward to Maxwell and Julio Jones being one of the premier matchups on Monday Night Football.
Like you said, you got to protect the quarterback, and this Eagles front seven is one of the best in the league. It just looks like an ugly matchup tonight for the Falcons with that front seven going up against the Falcons' offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, if you judge it just by preseason game number 3 against Miami, who has a pretty darn good defensive line as well, the Falcons were pushed around. Since that point, though, Joe Holly, who was thought to be the center, has been cut. They traded for Andy Levitre from the Tennessee Titans. You're all of a sudden looking at Mike Person being the center. James Stone, who was a starting left guard early in preseason, has now been moved to backup. That thing, though, if there is, cause for optimism for the Atlanta Falcons, Jake Matthews is healthy. And that's one of the big things. He had a back situation going into preseason game number 4. There was some concern that he wasn't going to be able to go this week, but he's there. The Falcons, every week, the biggest concern they're going to have is how do you do against the opposing team's pass rush. I think it's going to be important tonight for Matt to get off to a good start, and they're going to have to find a way to run the ball, meaning Atlanta with Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman, just to keep Philadelphia from pinning their ears back and sending 6 or 7 at Matt the entire time.
John Michaels joins us right now on the hotline, WHIP Radio in Philadelphia. John is the sideline reporter for the Atlanta Falcons on 92.9, the game down there in Atlanta. He'll be on the sidelines tonight for Eagles and Falcons that comes your way at 7 o'clock. This Eagles three-headed monster attack at the running back position is going to be something special. Murray and Matthews will dominate most of the carries. Then you have to watch out for Sproles out of the backfield as he can catch and run with that football, as we've seen a whole lot last year. I look at it tonight, though, it just seems like the Eagles are going to rush for over 150 yards because, I really like Dan Quinn, but there's got to be some patience. They just don't have the pieces on defense yet.
Well, one of the things, and I tend to agree that they'll be able to run the ball. And Darren Sproles is a guy that's been a Falcon thorn, in the side back from his days with the New Orleans Saints. I think Philly will be able to run the ball. But one thing that's happened so far with Dan Quinn, simplifying the system, it's made it easier for guys to just come up and attack. I think Mike Nolan, I mentioned the message maybe getting stale with Mike Smith a while ago. I think the message was getting stale with Mike Nolan, trying to be too creative, guys dropping in the coverage that maybe should have been rushing the passer. It's easier right now with what Quinn's running. Then there has been an upgrade in talent. Paul Warlow, I know he's been starting for 2 years, dropped some weight in the offseason, got in better shape. All of a sudden you go out and you get a Justin Durant who looks like a playmaker. I know he was injured some last year with the Cowboys, but he's flying around making tackles. Brooks Reed won't play tonight, obviously, with groin surgery, but he was an upgrade. And then you bring in somebody like Vic Beasley and O'Brien Schofield, guys that can actually get after the quarterback. Philly may be able to run the ball, but I think they're going to be up against a little bit stiffer opposition than they've seen in the past, going off the tape from a year ago from the Falcons.
Expectations are high here in Philadelphia. I penciled in the Eagles as the 3 seed in the NFC in my division, in my preseason predictions. I still like Green Bay, and I know Seattle went down yesterday, but I still think Seattle will put things together. However, this Eagles season all depends on the health of the quarterback in Sam Bradford. He hasn't been healthy for 2 straight years. Chip Kelly made a big gamble trading away Nick Foles and bringing in Bradford, but Chip thinks Sam is the right guy, and Sam did have a really good preseason. We'll see how it translates into the regular season. What kind of season do you expect for number 7 of the Eagles?
He's the guy that, if you really start to think about the offseason to Chip Kelly, for me, he's the biggest enigma of all of them. Okay, you trade away LaShawn McCoy, and I know Eagle fans probably weren't happy with that. You allow Jeremy Maclin to walk. People probably weren't happy with that either. But there's still talent at those positions in Philadelphia. Sam Bradford, you're betting on a guy that really has struggled to stay healthy his entire career. And even when healthy, and I understand St. Louis didn't have a whole lot of weapons to work with, even when healthy, Sam Bradford was at best an average quarterback. And I mean, I'm talking 17th, 18th, 20th in the league. Now he's been handed basically the keys to a Ferrari where he's trying to take this offense and excel. It's one thing I've learned from watching Chip Kelly, though, all the way back at his time at Oregon. he can pretty much plug anybody into the quarterback position and make it work. I mean, Mark Sanchez had 300-yard games last year, and all of a sudden, Eagles fans thought he could maybe be the next starting quarterback. I think if Bradford's healthy, he'll have a pretty good year because he's got a lot of weapons and a system that works. But I don't think Sam Bradford's the answer long term. I think Chip Kelly in a year or two is going to be looking for that answer once again.
The big question is how much rust is going to be there, because you could come and play in the preseason. That's one thing. Now you got to do it in the regular season. And Eagles fans, they're banking on a lot of the arm and legs and the health of Sam Bradford. But just one interesting thing that I think fans should really look at and pay attention to, I bet you early on in the year, and maybe this could be something that goes throughout the whole season, the roughing the passer penalties will be very high up against the Eagles. I think if the teams defensively, if they get a chance of that extra lick, even if it costs them 15 yards, I think they'll take it just because Sam Bradford's so fragile.
Oh, absolutely. They're going to take some shots at him. The best thing, though, for Eagles fans, the NFL protects quarterbacks like none other. I mean, I watched the game yesterday. I think Ryan Tannehill got hit. Somebody crawled into him and barely hit his legs, and they threw a roughing penalty. The interesting to me, more than the drop-back passing portion of the roughing that you're talking about, what happens when Sam runs the read option? We had some controversy with that in the preseason. If he runs the read option, I guarantee every team is going to take their shots at him. But I wonder if Chip Kelly keeps that in the offense or if he limits a bunch of that as well.
You're exactly right. John Michaels joins us right now from 92.9 The Game down in Atlanta. He is the sideline reporter for Atlanta Falcons football. John, real quickly before we let you run, I picked the Falcons to actually win this NFC South, but I don't have a lot of confidence in the NFC South. How many wins is going to win the NFC South this year? I penciled in at 7.
Well, I think it'll be more than the 7 that won it a year ago. Zach, I'd probably go with 9. I don't have a lot of confidence. You saw New Orleans struggle yesterday. Tampa Bay is going to be awful. Carolina, I know their defense is going to be pretty good, but offensively they're going to continue to be challenged. That's where I give the Falcons the advantage. They have the best quarterback outside of Drew Brees in the division. They have the best wide receiver in Julio Jones. You've got an upgraded coach. You've got an upgrade on the defensive side. I think 9 or 10 wins will definitely be a good mark for the Falcons. And I think they will win the division as well. I'm being a homer with that pick.
John, we always appreciate it. Thanks so much. Great stuff from you. Have a good call tonight.
All right. Thanks, man.